tonight, picture a cave in the mountains of Siberia. The air is sharp with cold and snow presses heavy against the entrance, muting every sound. Inside, the chamber is quiet but not empty. The walls glisten faintly where frost has melted and frozen again. The ground is littered with bones, teeth, and ash from fires long gone. A flicker of torchlight might reveal what the daylight cannot. The traces of lives once lived here, forgotten for tens of thousands of years. You'd probably never make it through a single Paleolithic night. But don't worry, I'll guide you safely through. So before we go further, if this quiet company helps, you can gently tap like and subscribe, but only if it feels right to your heart. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Maybe lying awake in New York, or drifting in a quiet room in London. Drop your time and place below, so none of us feel alone tonight. Now dim the lights, let your shoulders relax, and let's begin tonight's slow, strange journey, together here on Timeless Sleep. It was in such a cave, Denisova Cave, high in the Altai Mountains of Siberia, that one of the greatest surprises in the story of humanity was discovered. Archaeologists had been sifting through the layers of sediment, brushing away dust from stone tools and fragments of bone, when they came across something so small it might have been overlooked entirely. A finger bone, just a fragment, no longer than a coin, pale and fragile, as if it would crumble in hand. At first it seemed like another shard in a vast archaeological puzzle, yet it was destined to rewrite what we know about who we are. This bone, dated to around 40,000 years ago, did not belong to Homo sapiens, nor to Neanderthals, though both had wandered these lands. Instead, when scientists extracted DNA from it, they found a ghost, a lineage of humans unknown, neither us nor them, but something different. A new branch of the human tree emerged from that tiny fragment. They named them Denisovans, after the cave. It was as though a door had opened in the darkness, revealing cousins we never knew we had. Imagine the astonishment of the researchers. For more than a century, human evolution had been mapped through bones and skulls, stone tools and cave art. But now, from a single child's finger bone, genetics whispered of an entire people, a people who left almost no visible trace, but whose DNA was as loud as a shout. The Denisovans had been hiding in plain sight, not in fossils on shelves, but in the blood and genes of living people around the world. The cave itself became famous, nestled in a valley, surrounded by larch forests and icy rivers. Denisova Cave is not large, but it is deep. Layers of sediment tell stories of occupation stretching back 300,000 years. Neanderthals lived here. Homo sapiens, too, would later pass through, and Denisovans, those mysterious cousins, lingered here as well. Their traces overlap, suggesting that this cave was crossroads, a meeting place where different branches of humanity brushed shoulders, perhaps traded words, perhaps fought, perhaps loved. Think of the strangeness of it. You walk into that cave today and see only rocks and dust, but under your feet lie thousands of years of lives. Every layer of soil is a page in forgotten book, and the Denisovans were one of its most secret chapters. They left stone tools, ornaments, bits of bone, but unlike Neanderthals, who gave us skulls, or sapiens, who painted caves with art, the Denisovans remained shadows. Without DNA, we might never have known they existed at all. And here's the quirky detail. The first Denisovan identified from that finger bone was a young girl, perhaps no more than 10 or 12 years old. We don't know her face, her voice, her dreams, yet she became ambassador of an entire people. Through her, a whole lineage was revealed, her cells holding secrets locked away for tens of millennia. From her fingertip came the recognition that humanity was far more diverse than we ever imagined. The cave also yielded a tooth, massive and broad, with roots sprawling like tree trunks. It did not match sapiens, nor Neanderthals. It matched the DNA of the finger bone. Denisovans were robust, perhaps large, perhaps giant compared to us. Their teeth alone suggested strength, adaptation, a body made for endurance in harsh climates. Each fragment teased, hinting at lives vivid but unseen. Imagine holding that tooth in your hand. Heavy, ridged, built for crushing. You picture a face around it, jaw strong, cheekbones high, eyes narrowed against glare of snow. But you can only imagine. No skull has ever been found whole. The Denisovans remain faceless. Their image left to speculation and reconstruction. They are ghosts who lived, whose blood still runs in us, but whose features are erased by time. The discovery shook the field of human origins. Until then, the story had seemed straightforward. Neanderthals in Europe, Homo sapiens in Africa, and spreading outward, a few archaic cousins along the way. But the Denisovans cracked open that neat picture. Suddenly, Asia was not empty land waiting for sapiens, but home to another people entirely, a people who endured for hundreds of thousands of years, overlapping with both Neanderthals and sapiens. And here's where the humor sneaks in. Imagine the scientists explaining to each other, "We've just discovered a whole new species of humans, and they've been hiding in one child's pinky finger the whole time." It's almost like finding a lost sibling because someone dug through the family junk drawer. The absurdity of it still makes researchers chuckle, even as they marvel at its significance. What makes it even stranger is how little physical evidence exists. A finger bone, a tooth, a few other fragments, a piece of skull, a jawbone found in Tibet decades later. That's all. The Denisovans are a people known more from genes than from bones, more from whispers in DNA than from faces in stone. They are mystery embodied, living proof that history hides more than it reveals. Yet the DNA is loud, shouting through time. It tells us Denisovans were not rare, not fringe. They were widespread, inhabiting Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, mingling with others, leaving descendants. They were not ghosts, but flesh and blood, hunters and gatherers, mothers and children, lovers and warriors. Their fragments survive not in soil alone, but in us, in the genetic inheritance carried in millions alive today. Picture standing in Denisova cave as evening falls. The wind moans through trees, snow settles against entrance, shadows lengthen across stone. You hold a small fragment of bone, no bigger than thumb joint. You know it belongs to someone who lived 40,000 years ago, someone who laughed, cried, dreamed. You cannot see her face, but you feel her presence. Around you, the cave whispers with silence of countless lives. The legacy of that cave reminds us that our story is not simple. We are not lone survivors, but one branch among many, shaped by kin who walked beside us. Denisovans remind us of hidden diversity, of cousins lost yet not forgotten, their blood still in ours. They teach us humility, that history is wider, stranger, richer than we thought. And so, as your breath slows tonight, imagine lying at mouth of that Siberian cave. Snow falls softly, stars burn above, fire flickers low. You feel warmth on skin, hear faint laughter, echoing from past. Denisovans may be gone, but they are not lost. They linger in fragments, in whispers, in your own blood. Let that thought comfort you as sleep gathers, that you are never alone, but always part of larger story, a family stretching back into shadows of deep time. The little finger bone and the broad tooth sat quietly in laboratories, their shapes intriguing but not revolutionary on their own. What changed everything was when scientists peered deeper, not at the surface of the fossils, but at the microscopic threads of information curled within them. DNA, the blueprint of life, still clung to the bone after tens of thousands of years. And from that ancient code came the revelation that Denisovans were neither Neanderthals nor Homo sapiens. They were something else entirely, a branch of humanity unknown until that very moment. Imagine the astonishment. Researchers had spent years studying Neanderthal genomes, comparing them with our own, mapping out interbreeding and divergence. But when they sequenced the Denisova finger, the data refused to fit into the existing picture. It was like opening an old family tree and finding a branch no one had ever spoken of, a set of relatives who had lived, loved, and died without ever appearing in the stories passed down. And yet their DNA wasn't gone. It hummed in surprising places in the blood of modern people from Asia, Oceania, and beyond. The Denisovans had vanished from the earth, but echoes of them lingered in living bodies. Think of the eerie poetry of it. One tiny bone, no longer than your fingernail, held enough code to reveal an entire people. The girl it belonged to had died 40,000 years ago, but her cells carried the record of her ancestry like a locked book. Science had finally learned how to read the pages. From that bone, Denisovans stepped out of darkness and into the story of us. And then came the surprise. The Denisovans had left their mark on us. Modern humans in Southeast Asia, in Papua New Guinea, in Melanesia, carry significant portions of Denisovan DNA, sometimes as much as 5%. Imagine that. Millions alive today are walking testaments to encounters tens of thousands of years old, carrying whispers of Denisovan bodies in their own cells. You are, in a way, part Denisovan too, though likely in smaller traces. Humor sneaks in here as well. One scientist joked that sequencing the genome was like finding out your family reunion has a whole branch of cousins who never show up because they've been gone for 40 millennia, and yet, awkwardly, they still left their DNA in you. Ancient mingling was apparently less picky about family trees than we might imagine. The genome also hinted at health and survival. Denisovan DNA influences modern traits, from how we respond to altitude, to how our immune systems fight disease, to how our bodies handle sugar. It's as though their adaptations to Asia's harsh environments were gifted forward, tucked into our code as inheritance. They live on not in monuments or art, but in lungs, blood, cells. Picture researchers staring at computer screens, the sequence scrolling endlessly, billions of letters forming genetic music, each twist of code a clue to who Denisovans were, how they lived, how they mingled with others. No paintings survive of their faces, no stories of their hunts, but their DNA tells story louder than words. They were explorers, survivors, lovers, warriors, enduring for hundreds of thousands of years across a continent. The puzzle grew stranger with each find. The DNA revealed not one Denisovan population, but several branches within the branch. Some groups contributed genes to modern Tibetans, others to Papuans, others perhaps to people across Southeast Asia. Denisovans were not a single uniform population, but diverse, spread wide across landscapes from Siberia to tropics. They were more like a nation of peoples than a single tribe. Archaeologists began scouring Asia anew, searching caves and sediments for more traces. They realized Denisovans had been hiding all along, their fingerprints scattered across modern genomes like clues waiting to be noticed. The DNA puzzle turned archaeology upside down. Instead of bones leading to names, names were leading to bones. Genetics had discovered a people before their skeletons were even known. And yet, questions multiplied. What did Denisovans look like? How did they sound when they spoke? Did they sing songs, tell stories, laugh around fires? DNA gave their outline, but not their faces. We knew their genes, but not their culture, their presence, but not their personalities. The mystery deepened, as if they had risen from mist only to vanish again. But the code did more. It showed interbreeding, love written in chromosomes. Denisovans mixed not only with sapiens, but with Neanderthals. One astonishing fossil, a fragment of bone from the same Siberian cave, belonged to a girl with a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father, a first-generation hybrid, proof that encounters were intimate, not abstract. Love, or something like it, left signatures in her very skeleton. The puzzle, though incomplete, makes one thing certain: the human story is not linear. It is not a neat ladder of progress from ape to us. It is web, tangled and knotted, branches splitting, crossing, rejoining. Denisovans remind us that humanity was once a chorus, not a solo. Many voices, many faces, some now lost, others surviving only in whispers of DNA. Picture yourself standing at mouth of Denisova cave, holding that finger bone in hand. It is small, fragile, silent, yet within it lies entire genome, entire people, entire history waiting to be read. And as night falls, torches fade, snow drifts across entrance, you realize the puzzle is not finished. Denisovans remain mysterious, hidden, half-seen, but their DNA hums within millions alive today, proof that they are not gone entirely. Their legacy flows through breath and blood, binding past and present. The puzzle continues, but already it has changed how we see ourselves, not as single story, but as many interwoven. The DNA from Denisova Cave was astonishing, but it raised another question almost immediately. If Denisovans were a whole branch of humanity, where did they live? Were they confined to this one Siberian cave, a footnote in the far north, or were they spread across the vastness of Asia? The answer, whispered by genes and confirmed by scattered fossils, is that Denisovans were everywhere. Their range stretched across thousands of miles, from the icy forests of Siberia to the wind-carved plateaus of Tibet, from the jungles of Southeast Asia to the islands beyond. They were not a local curiosity, they were one of the great human presences of their time. Picture Asia in the deep past. The continent is immense, layered with mountains, deserts, and rivers. In the north, icy winds cut across endless plains. In the south, humidity drips from jungle leaves. In the west, mountains pierce the sky. Into each of these worlds, Denisovans walked. Their footprints crossed glaciers and valleys, coasts and caves. Where Homo sapiens hesitated, Denisovans had already roamed. They were wanderers of Asia long before we carved our place there. The strongest clue lies in modern DNA. Populations far from Siberia carry Denisovan fragments in their blood. The peoples of Papua New Guinea, Australia, and Melanesia carry as much as 5% Denisovan ancestry. That percentage could not come from a single Siberian cave. It meant Denisovans lived across the south, mingling with the ancestors of modern islanders. Their presence stretched from cold mountains to tropical seas. Asia was their domain. The jawbone from Baishia Karst Cave in Tibet added dramatic proof. Found by a monk decades earlier, it was later identified through protein analysis as Denisovan. Imagine that, a cousin who lived 160,000 years ago at nearly 11,000 feet above sea level, on a plateau where even modern lungs gasp for air. Denisovans did not merely survive there, they thrived. Their DNA today grants Tibetans ability to breathe thin air, adaptation gifted from ancestors who had already mastered the heights. And then there is Southeast Asia, fossils in Laos, cave traces in Indonesia, and above all, the genetic legacy carried in Pacific Islanders point to Denisovans venturing deep into tropics. This is no small feat. To move from icy Siberia to steaming jungles demands incredible adaptability. Denisovans must have been resilient, versatile, able to clothe themselves, feed themselves, adjust to heat and cold alike. Few other human groups show such breadth of range. Imagine them trekking across a river valley in what is now Myanmar. Stone tools strapped to belts, children trailing, Hunters scanning canopy for fruit and prey. Then picture others trudging through snowbound taiga in Siberia, wrapped in furs, fires sputtering against wind. Both are Denisovans, cousins separated by climate and distance, yet bound by lineage. They were everywhere, masters of Asia's extremes, and humor sneaks into the thought. One scientist once quipped that Denisovans were like the Airbnb of human evolution. Wherever you turn in Asia, someone had already been living there before you. It's funny, but it underscores the truth. They were a continental presence, their shadows stretching far beyond one cave. Their range also meant encounters. To spread so widely was to cross paths with Neanderthals in the west, with early Homo sapiens in the east and south. Each meeting carried possibility, conflict, exchange, interbreeding. The DNA record confirms it. Denisovan genes appear in different modern populations because they mingled repeatedly in different places, with different groups. They were not ghosts who hid in caves. They were neighbors, rivals, sometimes lovers, and this wide range reveals their adaptability. Neanderthals, for all their strength, mostly clung to Europe and the Levant. Homo sapiens arose in Africa and spread outward, but Denisovans, they were Asia's native children, woven into every landscape, enduring across hundreds of thousands of years. This alone marks them as extraordinary. The archaeological record is still thin, but tools and ornaments found in Denisova Cave, blades, pendants, bone needles, suggest they were capable craftspeople. If these objects were truly theirs, then Denisovans not only roamed, they innovated, and if they carried such skill from Siberia to Tibet, to Laos, to islands, then their culture too spread far and wide, adapting to every horizon. Picture the moment of realization for scientists. DNA in Papua New Guinea matched DNA from Siberia. A jawbone from Tibet whispered the same lineage. The tooth in Siberia, a gene in an islander, fragments of a skull from the cave. The pieces fit. Denisovans were not confined, they were continental, sprawling, diverse. Asia itself was their home, and this vast range also explains their genetic diversity. Different Denisovan populations diverged over time, forming subgroups adapted to local conditions. Some gave Tibetans the gene for altitude, others gave islanders resilience against tropical disease. Denisovans were not one people but many, spread across continents, connected by lineage but shaped by place. Children must have grown up hearing stories of journeys across rivers, up mountains, into new valleys. Their identity was forged not in stillness, but in movement. To be Denisovan was to belong everywhere, to adapt to anywhere. Their world was vast, their presence immense. Even now, their legacy persists. Walk through Tibet, breathe thin air. Denisovan genes fill lungs. Visit Papua New Guinea, trace ancestry. Denisovan fragments shape immunity, metabolism. They are not gone, not entirely. Their blood still flows in millions alive today. Their range is not only past but present, inscribed in bodies. Picture yourself standing in Baishia Cave, wind howling across plateau, stars fierce above. In hand, you hold a fragment of jaw, heavy, ancient. You imagine Denisovans here, fires burning, children laughing, songs echoing against rock. Then imagine another group, far to the south. In tropical forest, sweat dripping, cicadas buzzing. Both are Denisovans, both a family, spread across half the world. And as night falls, you realize their range was their power, their gift, their legacy. They remind us that humanity was once many, that our cousins were not confined but vast. They walk Siberian snows, Tibetan heights, island forests, and their presence still lingers in our veins. Denisovans are everywhere, not in bones but in blood. not in faces, but in genes. And through them we too are wider than we knew. The Denisovans roamed far, but when you return to their first discovery place, that cave in Siberia, you feel the true weight of their resilience. For the Altai Mountains are not gentle. Winters there gnaw at bone, the cold slicing through furs and flesh alike. Snow lies heavy across valleys, winds howl through trees, rivers freeze solid. To survive in such a place was not accident. It was adaptation, ingenuity, endurance. Denisovans were masters of the cold. Picture them moving through taiga forest, the crunch of snow beneath their feet. The air stings lungs, each breath white cloud. Children cling to mothers' furs. Hunters walk with spears strapped tight, their eyes scanning for elk, bison, woolly rhinoceros. Fires wait in caves behind them, embers still glowing, warmth they will need to reach again. The cold is enemy, constant and unrelenting, but Denisovans learn to live with it. What did they wear? No cloth remains, but bone needles, found in Denisova cave, whisper of tailored clothing, furs stitched together to wrap bodies fully. Unlike earlier humans who may have draped hides loosely, Denisovans likely sewed garments close to skin, creating insulation against bitter winds. Each stitch was survival, each thread the difference between life and death. Their tools, too, were adapted to climate. Stone blades for cutting frozen meat, scrapers for working hides stiff from frost, bone awls for piercing fur. Fires burned hot in caves, fueled by wood carried from forests. Imagine trudging through snow with bundle of branches, arms aching, knowing fire is life itself. Without flame, without fur, without shelter, the cold would swallow them in hours. Food too was challenge. Winters stripped forests bare, left plains empty. Denisovans hunted great beasts, their spears tipped with stone, their coordination precise. Elk, horse, perhaps mammoth fell to their hunts. Meat shared, hides stripped, bones cracked for marrow, fat was prized. Fire roasted to fuel bodies through freezing nights. In cold, food was not luxury but constant necessity, and yet they thrived. Evidence suggests Denisovans were not only enduring cold, but mastering it. Their bodies may have been stocky, broad-chested, lungs strong, blood thick with adaptations against frost. Their very DNA reveals mutations tied to survival in harsh climates, passed down into modern humans who still benefit from their ancient resilience. Humor softens this thought. Imagine a Denisovan child complaining, "It's too cold to go outside," and the mother replying, "If you don't fetch wood, we all freeze." Some struggles are timeless. Even in Ice Age, children grumbled, parents scolded, families laughed through frostbite. Humanity has always needed humor to endure hardship. The cave itself was sanctuary. Thick walls sheltered against winds, fires warmed stone. Inside, families huddled together, heat shared through bodies as much as flame. Shadows danced along walls, laughter mixed with crackle of fire. Stories filled the air. Outside the world froze, but inside, life pulsed strong. Denisova Cave was not only shelter, it was home. Archaeologists uncover layers of ash, evidence of repeated fires burning for centuries. Imagine smoke curling upward, staining ceilings black. Each generation added its embers to the same hearths, each child growing up in warmth carved by ancestors. The cave was continuity, a thread of survival through endless winters, and their resilience shaped identity. To live in cold was to respect fire, to honor beasts, to plan carefully. Waste meant death. Laziness meant starvation. Denisovans must have built cultures of discipline, of sharing, of reverence for resources. Their survival was not brute endurance but organized cooperation. Consider too the silence of such winters. Outside, snow-muffled sound, air heavy with stillness. Inside, Fires crackled, voices rose, songs perhaps echoed. Music may have been born as much from need to break silence as from joy. A flute carved from bone could carry sound through dark, lifting spirits against long cold nights. The cold also shaped their migrations. To survive in Siberia was to adapt quickly, but it also taught them to move when needed. Perhaps some families pushed south in harsh winters, seeking forests rich in game. Others climbed mountains, others followed herds. The cold was teacher, forcing flexibility, ensuring Denisovans spread widely, and the cold shaped their encounters. When Homo sapiens later wandered into Asia, Denisovans already knew how to survive its extremes. Perhaps they taught us, showing where to hunt, how to stitch furs, how to breathe in high places. Perhaps they competed fiercely, driving us from caves they mastered. Either way, their knowledge of cold was part of legacy they left. Even now, fragments of their DNA help modern people adapt. The EPAS1 gene, inherited from Denisovans, lets Tibetans thrive in thin air of plateau. Other fragments strengthen immune systems, helping resist diseases. Their survival strategies live on, coded into us, ancient gifts against modern challenges. Picture a winter night, 40,000 years ago. Outside, snow drives hard, wolves howl, rivers lie frozen. Inside, Denisovans gather by fire, children curled in furs, elders telling stories, hunters sharpening tools. They laugh softly, they sing, they plan hunts, they dream. The cold presses outside, but within, warmth glows. They are not victims of Ice Age, but masters of it, shaping lives around its demands. As you drift tonight, imagine yourself in that cave. Furs wrap you, fire warms you, voices murmur in language lost but familiar. Outside, snow falls endlessly, but inside you are safe, carried by ancestors who once conquered cold. Denisovans whisper that survival is not only strength, but community, ingenuity, love. Their mastery of cold is legacy we still carry, breath by breath, gene by gene. The cold demanded endurance, but endurance alone was never enough. To live through the Ice Age, Denisovans needed more than fur and fire. They needed tools, not just crude shards, but objects of precision, crafted to cut, scrape, pierce, stitch. They needed ornaments too, beads and pendants that spoke of more than hunger and cold, of identity and beauty. In Denisova cave, buried in the layers of ash and soil, these objects have been found, fragments of craft that whisper of a people who were more than survivors. They were makers, artisans, inventors. Picture a hunter kneeling beside a carcass of elk in snow. In his hand, a flake of stone, sharp as glass, edges chipped with skill. With steady pressure he slices hide, muscles practiced in movements taught by generations. Around him, others prepare scrapers to clean fur, awls to pierce tough skin, knives to butcher meat. These are not random shards, but carefully shaped tools, their edges retouched, their forms deliberate. Bone too became material. From ribs and antlers came awls and needles, some drilled with tiny holes for threading fibers or sinew. Imagine a mother bent close to fire, squinting as she pushes sinew through needle, stitching fur garments for her children. Her fingers are nimble, her movements precise. This is not guesswork, but technology. The ability to turn bone into instruments that change how humans live. In cold Siberia, a stitched coat meant life itself. Archaeologists believe some of these ornaments may have been worn as status markers, perhaps tokens of belonging or love. Imagine a girl receiving that green bracelet from her kin, slipping it onto her wrist, wearing it proudly as she danced by fire. Even in Ice Age Siberia, humans loved to decorate. to say this is me, this is ours, this is beautiful. The tools themselves reveal intelligence, edges retouched, flakes struck with precision, angles calculated for strength. To make such objects required planning, knowledge passed from teacher to learner, memory carried across generations. Children watched elders flake stone, learning where to strike, how to read lines of fracture. In those lessons, culture grew, not only skill but tradition. Tools also travelled. A blade made in one layer of cave appears again in another, generations apart. This continuity shows tradition, styles passed down, methods preserved. Denisovans did not reinvent constantly. They remembered improved, taught. Their craft was lineage, just as much as blood. And yet, they innovated. Bone needles suggest clothing stitched tightly, not draped. Ornaments show aesthetic sense. Polished stone tools show patience. Denisovans were not static but dynamic, always adapting, refining, pushing boundaries of what tools could be. Their range across Asia suggests diverse toolkits. In forests they may have made traps and digging sticks. In mountains, heavy blades for bone. In islands, perhaps rafts or simple boats. Though evidence is thin, their survival across such varied climates suggests ingenuity. Each environment demanded new solutions, and Denisovans found them. Tools also shaped identity. To wear certain ornaments may have marked kinship. To carry certain blade styles may have signaled belonging. Craft was not just survival but social expression. Through tools, Denisovans spoke language of culture, silent yet powerful. Children played with scraps, imitating elders. They chipped small stones, strung pebbles into pretend beads, tried to stitch scraps of hide. Their play was training, their laughter seeds of future artisans. Even games wove culture forward. The beauty of their ornaments startles even today. The green bracelet gleams as if made by jeweler, its drill marks so precise. Some scientists suggest rotary tools were used. Imagine the patience of maker, hours spent smoothing, polishing, shaping, drilling. This was not made in haste, but in love, devotion, art. To hold it is to feel presence of mind that cared for beauty as much as warmth, and beauty itself had power. Ornaments may have been gifts to spirits, charms for luck, tokens for love. To wear beads or bracelets is to carry meaning, to show connection not only to living but perhaps to ancestors, to unseen. Craft bridged survival and belief. Humor persists even here. Imagine a youth presenting crooked bead as gift, the hole drilled uneven, the shape awkward. The girl laughs, teasing, yet wears it anyway. Imperfection too carried love. The makers surely chuckled at their own errors, turning failure into memory. Archaeologists find tiny fragments, flakes, bones, beads, and from them reconstruct worlds. Each tool, each ornament is whisper from past, saying, "We were more than hunger, more than survival. We made, we oded, we loved beauty." Denisovans remind us that to be human is to craft meaning from stone and bone. Picture yourself now in Denisova cave. Fire glows, shadows stretch. Beside you a man chips stone, sparks flying. A woman stitches fur with bone needle. Children string beads into necklace. Laughter filling air. Tools and ornaments lie scattered, shining faintly in firelight. Outside, cold rages, but inside, culture thrives. And as you close your eyes tonight, imagine those hands working, those needles stitching, those beads gleaming. Denisovans teach that survival is not only endurance but creativity, not only strength but craft. Their tools and ornaments whisper across ages, reminding us that we are makers, always, even in coldest nights. The Denisovans proved themselves in icy Siberia, stitching furs with bone needles and carving beauty into stone. But perhaps their most astonishing feat was not in cold forests or dark caves. It was high in the sky on the roof of the world, long before most humans could even dream of surviving at such heights. Denisovans mastered the thin air of the Tibetan plateau. Their genes gave them power to breathe where others would faint, to thrive where mountains touch the heavens. In this they earned a title no other humans of their time could claim: masters of altitude. Picture the plateau itself. The land is vast and open, stretching endlessly, a horizon broken only by snow-capped peaks. The air is thin, every breath like pulling through straw. The proof lies in a jawbone found in Baishia Karst Cave, nestled at nearly 11,000 feet above sea level. Its teeth were massive, its age staggering, about 160,000 years old. When proteins were tested, the verdict was clear: Denisovan. Imagine that. While Neanderthals huddled in Europe and early Homo sapiens still roamed Africa, Denisovans were already perched on mountains so high the sky itself seemed closer. They were breathing air most of us would struggle to survive in for more than a few days. How did they manage it? The answer hides not only in fossils but in genes. A mutation known as EPAS1, passed into modern Tibetans, gives their blood an edge. Unlike other humans, Tibetans do not flood their systems with red blood cells in thin air, a dangerous response that leads to clots and sickness. Instead, thanks to Denisovan DNA, their bodies use oxygen more efficiently. In other words, Denisovans engineered adaptation into their very blood, then gifted it to descendants who still climb mountains today. Life on the plateau demanded more than lungs. Food was scarce, winters cruel, resources thin. Denisovans likely hunted wild yaks, sheep and gazelles, tracking them across rocky slopes. They must have gathered roots and hardy plants, melted snow for water, stored fat against long winters. Fires were harder to keep alight in thin air, yet they burned them anyway, smoke curling into sky like signal to gods above. Imagine a Denisovan family crouched in Baishia Cave. The father sharpens a stone blade, the mother stirs a pot of marrow and roots. The children play with pebbles, their laughter echoing in high air. Outside, wind howls like spirit's voice. Snow drives across plateau. Stars blaze sharper than anywhere else. Yet inside they are warm, adapted, thriving. What would make us dizzy with hypoxia was simply home to them. This adaptation gave them power beyond survival. When Homo sapiens finally wandered into Asia, we struggled with altitude. Our bodies weakened, our breaths failed, but those who mingled with Denisovans, interbreeding in valleys near the Himalayas, inherited genes that made the impossible livable. Without Denisovans, Tibetans might never have mastered their plateau, and mountaineers today might not climb Everest without help from ancient cousins' DNA. It is humbling to realize that your ability to trek high mountains, to gasp a little less desperately at 12,000 feet, is not wholly your own. It is gift from people long gone, cousins whose faces we have never seen. Denisovans do not live, yet they live in blood of those who still walk the mountains they once called home. And with altitude came belief. Standing at such heights where clouds drift beneath feet and stars feel within reach, it is easy to imagine Denisovans saw land as sacred. Perhaps they believed spirits dwelled in peaks, ancestors whispered in winds, gods thundered in storms. High places invite faith. Their descendants still see mountains as holy, echo of beliefs carved deep into plateau long before written myths. What amazes archaeologists is not only that Denisovans lived at altitude, but that they did so early, long before Homo sapiens arrived. They were pioneers of thin air, mastering environment others could not endure. It suggests they were not fringe population, but innovators, always pushing edges of what human bodies could do. and their adaptation rippled outward. The IPAS1 gene is striking evidence of Denisovan legacy, but there are others: immune adaptations, metabolic traits, hints of changes that allowed humans to survive environments ranging from tundra to tropics. Denisovans were experimenters of evolution, carrying traits that later became crucial to survival. Picture a night on plateau. Fires burn in stone-walled shelter, sparks swirling into thin sky. A family huddles, telling stories in language we will never hear again. They laugh, they sing, their voices rising thin but clear into night. Outside, stars crowd closer, as if listening. They are not suffering, they are thriving, masters of heights no other human lineage dared to claim. Even now, their presence lingers. Walk through Tibetan valleys, see faces of herders, hear laughter of children chasing yaks. Their blood carries whispers of Denisovans, their lungs shaped by ancient cousins. They live in present, but past still breathes in them, quiet and unseen. And so the story of Denisovans is not confined to bones or caves. It flows in air of mountains, in genes of herders, in lungs of climbers. They were masters of altitude, pioneers of thin air, givers of gifts that endure. Their faces are lost, but their breath is still ours. As you drift tonight, imagine lying on Tibetan slope, stars fierce above, air thin yet sweet. You breathe deeply, lungs strong, heart steady, carried by gifts of ancestors. The Denisovans whisper in every breath, "We climbed before you, we breathed before you, we endure in you. Let their presence comfort you." The sleep descends gently like snow upon the peaks. The Denisovans mastered heights and cold, sewed furs with bone needles, and spread across Asia's vast landscapes. But in their journeys, they were not alone. To the west, their close cousins Neanderthals thrived across Europe and parts of Western Asia. Inevitably, the two groups met. Picture the first meeting. Perhaps it happened in a valley near the Altai Mountains, where rivers cut between forests. Denisovans hunting elk come upon strangers who look both familiar and strange. Stocky bodies, broad faces, heavy brows. Neanderthals, they pause, staring, sensing kinship in posture, strength, movements. Not enemies immediately, not friends immediately, but cousins meeting after long separation. In silence, they study one another, recognizing echoes of themselves. Genetics confirms what imagination suggests. Denisovans and Neanderthals were sister lineages. Their split from a common ancestor occurred hundreds of thousands of years earlier, yet they remained close enough to interbreed easily. DNA shows that their lives intertwined many times. They were not separate nations but branches of same tree, reconnecting across valleys and caves. In Denisova Cave itself, one of the most astonishing fossils ever found proves this intimacy. A fragment of bone, not much more than splinter, was sequenced. To the surprise of scientists, it belonged to a young girl whose mother was Neanderthal and father Denisovan, a first-generation hybrid. Imagine her, alive 40 or 50,000 years ago, playing at cave entrance, laughter echoing against stone. She was living embodiment of kinship between two peoples. Her existence reveals more than interbreeding. It shows that these encounters were not rare accidents, but recurring events. For a hybrid to be found among so few Denisovan bones suggests such unions were common. Denisovans and Neanderthals did not just tolerate one another, they formed families, raised children, shared lives. Their encounters were not only survival but intimacy. Humor softens the awe. One researcher quipped that Denisova Cave must have been the world's earliest blended family household. Picture Neanderthal in-laws arriving with heavy brows, Denisovan grandparents with massive teeth, all gathered around fire arguing over who sharpens stone better. Family tension, it seems, may be as old as family itself. But encounters may not have been all gentle. Two groups so similar would have competed fiercely for land, game, caves. Fights may have broken out, blood spilled over territory, rivals as much as relatives. Denisovans and Neanderthals shared both love and conflict. Genes show intimacy. Absence of larger populations shows possible struggle. Their relationship was as tangled as ours, cooperation and rivalry braided together. Yet the genetic evidence leans toward mingling. Modern humans carry fragments not only of Denisovan DNA, but of Neanderthal DNA, sometimes overlapping. This suggests a triangle of intimacy: Neanderthals mixing with Denisovans, Denisovans with us with both. The Ice Age world was no solitary ladder of progress, but a web of connections, each meeting leaving traces still alive in our blood. The Denisovan Neanderthal girl is most haunting of all. Scientists call her Denny. Her genome revealed her parents' identities with startling clarity. Her mother, a Neanderthal, came from a Western population. Her father, a Denisovan, carried ancestry from earlier Neanderthal admixture. In her very chromosomes was map of millennia of entanglement. She was not exception, she was proof of long tradition of connection. Humour surely filled these meetings too. Picture Denisovan mocking Neanderthal's heavy brow with playful grunt, or Neanderthal teasing Denisovan's giant tooth with exaggerated chewing. Laughter breaks tension, and even in Ice Age, cousins surely poked fun at each other's quirks. Kinship thrives on humour as much as blood. Their children carried legacy forward. Hybrids did not vanish, but likely grew into adults, passing genes to new generations. Today, fragments of Neanderthal, Denisovan mingling survive in our DNA, a quiet echo of encounters long ago. They did not live in isolation. They lived in webs of intimacy that still bind us. Imagine walking through Denisova Cave at dusk. Shadows lengthen, fire crackles, voices blend. A Neanderthal hums a song in deep tone. A Denisovan answers in higher pitch. Children laugh, playing together, chasing each other through flickering light. The cave is filled with echoes of both peoples, merged into one chorus. Their story humbles us. We once thought Neanderthals were brutish, Denisovans unknown. Now we see them as kin, complex and capable, loving and fighting, mixing and surviving. The encounter between Denisovans and Neanderthals is not a tale of separation, but of unity, messy, human, real. As you drift tonight, imagine sitting beside Denny in that cave. She leans close, eyes bright with curiosity, voice lost to time, but spirit alive. Around you, cousins mingle, fire warms, laughter rings. You feel kinship that stretches across 50,000 years, binding you to cousins once forgotten. Denisovans and Neanderthals remind us that we are not alone, never have been. We are family, tangled and enduring. By the time Denisovans and Neanderthals had forged their tangled kinship, another figure was stepping onto the stage of Asia. Early Homo sapiens, wandering outward from Africa, followed rivers and coasts, crossed deserts and forests, until they reached lands long held by their cousins. The meetings between Denisovans and our ancestors were inevitable, and like the ones with Neanderthals, they were complicated. Bloodlines mingled, ideas may have been shared, and perhaps in some valleys rivalries turned violent. Each encounter left traces, not in art or stories, but in the genomes of millions alive today. Picture the first moment of recognition. A Denisovan hunter crouches by a river, flaking stone into blade. Across water, figures appear, tall, narrow-faced, strangers but not entirely unfamiliar. Their movements are quick, their eyes sharp, their voices strange. He stiffens. They are not Neanderthals, not kin he knows, but something new. For a long moment, both groups stare, neither rushing forward, neither retreating. Curiosity and caution hang heavy in the cold air. The DNA record tells us that curiosity soon turned into intimacy. In Southeast Asia and Oceania, modern populations carry significant portions of Denisovan ancestry, some as high as 5%. These numbers could not come from a single brief encounter. They reveal generations of mingling, unions that left children, grandchildren, descendants stretching into present. Our ancestors did not simply brush past Denisovans, they joined with them, binding fates together. And yet, the mingling was not uniform. Some sapiens groups carry little Denisovan DNA, others much more. This suggests encounters happened at multiple times, in different places. Perhaps one group met Denisovans in Southeast Asia, another in Central Asia, another in island forests. Each meeting carried its own story, its own children, its own legacies. Denisovans did not vanish into us in one stroke, but in many woven threads. But not all meetings were peaceful. Competition for caves, hunting grounds, water must have sparked tension. Two intelligent species seeking same prey, same shelters, could not always cooperate. Some encounters likely ended in conflict, spears raised, blood spilled, yet even then, rivalry could not erase attraction, and love found paths through violence. The genomes testify, despite conflict, children were born of these unions, and through them, the lineages merged. Humor must have softened awkwardness too. Picture a Denisovan youth fumbling through gestures to impress a sapiens girl, his words misunderstood, her laughter ringing across camp, or imagine sapiens mocking their cousin's massive teeth with exaggerated chewing, and Denisovans laughing back at sapiens' thinner frames. Even across differences, laughter bridged gaps. One striking outcome of these encounters is how much Denisovan DNA shaped us. The gene that lets Tibetans live high on plateau, Denisovan, genes that help immune systems fight new diseases, Denisovan, traits scattered across Asia and Oceania, gifts from cousins who mingled with our ancestors. Meeting Denisovans was not just history, it was transformation. They are written into our very survival. In some ways, these encounters humbled Homo sapiens. We like to imagine ourselves as conquerors of Earth. But in Asia we were newcomers, wandering into lands long held by Denisovans. It was their world first. Perhaps they taught us how to live there, and perhaps we learned at their feet before outnumbering them. The arrogance of later centuries fades when we realize we would not be who we are without them. Imagine a sapiens family sharing fire with Denisovans. The smell of roasting meat fills cave, shadows flicker across walls. They trade tools, beads, stories in broken gestures. A child from each group plays together, laughter universe. For one night suspicion softens into warmth, and two lineages share humanity. The next morning they may part, never to meet again, but sometimes they stayed, and when they stayed, new families were born. Modern scientists marvel at this. To trace DNA across millennia is to read history in blood. Populations in Papua New Guinea, Australia, Melanesia, they carry Denisovan fragments like hidden inheritance. It means that somewhere long ago on islands or coasts, sapiens met Denisovans and fell into one another's arms. That tenderness, whether fleeting or lasting, echoes still in living people today. Humor rises again in this thought. One researcher joked, apparently when humans met Denisovans, they didn't just shake hands, they made family trees. It's a gentle way of saying that intimacy was instinct, stronger than difference. The Ice Age world was lonely, and cousins found comfort in each other. The encounters also remind us that species boundaries are not as solid as textbooks suggest. Denisovans, Neanderthals, sapiens, we were not separate boxes, but overlapping circles, blending whenever paths crossed. Our story is not ladder but braid, strands woven, twisted, merging. Denisovans are not lost branch. They are threads in our own rope. Picture yourself now in a clearing in Southeast Asia 40,000 years ago. Tall grass rustles, torches flicker, and two groups gather. Denisovans on one side, sapiens on other. They study one another, wary, curious. Then one steps forward, offers a carved bead, another laughs, offers a stone blade. Slowly, suspicion softens. By dawn, fire crackles between them, and a new chapter of humanity begins. And though Denisovans would vanish in time, their mingling ensured they would not vanish entirely. Their genes persist, shaping lungs of Tibetans, immune systems of islanders, bodies of millions. Meeting them was not end for us, but expansion. They became part of us, just as we became part of them. As night deepens, imagine lying by river where sapiens and Denisovans once met. Stars blaze, fire crackles, voices murmur and languages lost. In dreams, you feel presence of cousins, long gone, yet still inside you, in breath, in blood. Encounters that seemed fleeting were eternal, written into your body. Denisovans live in you still. The encounters between Denisovans and their cousins, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, left more than shared fires and exchanged beads. They left children, hybrids, sons and daughters born of unions that crossed boundaries our textbooks once insisted were solid. These children, flesh and breath, laughter and tears, carried within the mingled blood of different worlds. Their bones, rare though they are, still whisper of a time when human identity was fluid, and family trees were tangled with branches intertwining. The most famous of these is the girl called Deni. In Denisova Cave, scientists found a fragment of bone so small it could have been overlooked, yet inside it, DNA told an astonishing story. Her mother was a Neanderthal, her father a Denisovan. She was not distant descendant of mixing long past, she was first-generation hybrid. In her cells, two lineages that had diverged for hundreds of thousands of years, reunited. She was both equally, living proof that boundaries between our cousins were never absolute. Imagine her life in that cave. She might have sat by the fire, listening to voices of both sides, gestures mingled in communication. Perhaps she played with tools from each tradition, one shaped by Neanderthal hands, another by Denisovan craft. Her hair tangled in smoke, her laughter rang against stone walls. To her there was no division, she was simply herself, loved by family whose blood carried histories of two peoples. Her existence reshaped our understanding of humanity. For decades, Neanderthals were portrayed as brutish outsiders, Denisovans as shadows unknown. Now, in one child, they appear as kin close enough to love, to raise children together. Hybrids like Deni reveal a world where differences blurred, where humanity was not ladder of species but web of relationships. And she was not alone. Genetic evidence shows many hybrids existed. Traces of Neanderthal DNA in Denisovans, traces of Denisovan DNA in us, and combinations of all three appear in genomes. Each fragment of DNA is testimony to children born of mixed unions, their lives folding together threads of human diversity. They are not anomalies but part of pattern. Humor sneaks into this thought. One scientist joked that the Ice Age was like a very complicated soap opera, full of cousins marrying cousins, step relations mixing, family trees impossible to diagram. It's a light-hearted way of acknowledging something profound. Our past was messier, more intimate, more human than tidy diagrams allow. Consider the children of Denisovan sapiens unions in Southeast Asia. Their descendants still live today, carrying Denisovan fragments in every cell. These children blended tropical adaptations of Denisovans with new traits of sapiens, creating lineages that survived and flourished on islands and coasts. Without those unions, millions alive today would not be who they are. Or consider Neanderthal, Denisovan hybrids beyond Denny. Genetic evidence suggests repeated interbreeding, not one-time chance. In caves and valleys across Asia, children were born who carried two legacies. They grew up speaking languages we cannot hear, making tools whose traditions overlapped, blending myths of both peoples. They were bridges, living connection. What was life like for them? Did they feel belonging in both groups, or alienation from each? Perhaps some were cherished, celebrated as bonds between kin. Perhaps others struggled, their mixed identity questioned. Humanity has always wrestled with difference, and hybrids likely bore both love and burden of it. Their laughter may have healed divisions, their existence may have sparked tension. They lived at crossroads, embodying both unity and conflict. Picture a hybrid child running through snowy forest, Neanderthal uncle teaching him to hunt, Denisovan aunt showing her how to stitch fur. He grows with gifts of both, strong and adaptable, a living link between peoples. In his eyes are two lineages, in his blood two histories. He is child of mingling, proof that humanity is always broader than divisions we draw. And these hybrids were fertile, passing their genes onward. They did not end with themselves. They had children of their own, and so legacies spread. Today, fragments of Denisovan DNA are carried in billions of sapiens worldwide, not as relics, but as living inheritance. We are hybrid children too, though many generations removed. The existence of hybrids also challenges our ideas of species. Biologists once insisted species could not interbreed successfully. Yet here were Denisovans, Neanderthals, sapiens, all mixing, all producing fertile children. The categories blur. Humanity was not separate boxes, but overlapping circles, shading into one another through unions and offspring. Humor helps ease the complexity. Imagine archaeologists trying to draw family tree, arrows crisscross, lines loop, branches reconnect. Someone groans, "This looks less like a tree, and more like a bowl of spaghetti." And indeed, our ancestry is tangled, messy, full of crossings, but also full of life. For hybrids, survival was identity. They carried adaptations from both parents, strong builds from Neanderthals, altitude genes from Denisovans, perhaps imagination and art from sapiens. In their very bodies, they were mosaics of humanity. That mosaic endured, spreading into future, shaping who we are. Imagine Denny again, her voice lost but her presence vivid. She runs her fingers along stone wall of cave, tracing patterns of light. She laughs as cousins tease. She eats roasted meat by fire. She sleeps under furs stitched with needles. She does not know she is hybrid. She is simply child of family, loved, alive. In her, 300,000 years of separation dissolved into one life. Her bone fragment was small, fragile, yet it carried story of two peoples reunited. That story is not only hers, it is ours. Every time you breathe, fragments of Denisovan or Neanderthal DNA guide your cells, gifts of ancestors who mingled. You are living hybrid whether you know it or not. As night falls, picture yourself in Denisova cave, firelight flickering, shadows dancing. Around you sit families of Neanderthals, Denisovans, sapiens, cousins, rivals, lovers, kin. Children play together, some with broad teeth, some with narrow skulls, all laughing. You realize humanity has always been mixture, always been many becoming one. Hybrids were not exception, but rule. They are legacy written in every breath you take. For hundreds of thousands of years, Denisovans thrived across Asia. They mastered icy Siberia, stitched furs, carved ornaments, climbed to the roof of the world, mingled with cousins, and left children who carried their legacy. Yet today, no Denisovan remains alive as a distinct people. Their bones are scattered fragments, their caves silent, their voices gone. What happened? Why did they vanish while Homo sapiens, their younger cousins, spread to every continent? The question hangs heavy in the silence of their caves, a mystery etched into the soil. Picture the world around 40,000 years ago. Climate swung wildly, Ice Age glaciers advanced and retreated, environments changed in decades, rivers shifted, forests thinned, prey migrated. For a people spread so widely, such instability was peril. Denisovans were adaptable, but even resilience has limits. Harsh winters, sudden droughts, dwindling herds may have tested them beyond endurance. Survival is not only skill but chance, and climate may have tilted odds against them. At the same time, Homo sapiens were arriving in Asia in greater numbers. Our ancestors brought with them not only stone tools but new strategies, spear throwers, bows, nets, perhaps more efficient social networks. They painted caves, carved figurines, told stories that bound groups tighter. Where Denisovans had survived for millennia, sapiens pressed harder, faster, more numerous. Competition for prey and land grew fiercer. Encounters that once ended in mingling may increasingly have ended in conflict. Disease too may have played role. When populations meet, after long separations, illnesses leap across with devastating effect. Sapiens carried pathogens from Africa. Denisovans carried their own. Each encounter was gamble. Perhaps waves of sickness weakened Denisovans, leaving them vulnerable. We cannot prove it. But DNA whispers of immune adaptations gained from interbreeding, suggesting disease was constant spectre. And then there is the puzzle of numbers. Denisovans, spread wide, may have lived in small scattered groups. Sapiens, in contrast, seem to gather in larger communities, bonded by shared myths and art. Small groups struggle against large ones, not only in conflict but in exchange of ideas. Perhaps Denisovans simply dwindled through isolation, their populations too thin to survive long term. Yet their vanishing was not complete erasure. They did not disappear without trace. Through hybrids, through interbreeding, through children like Denny and countless others, Denisovan blood merged into ours. They ceased to exist as separate people, but they endure in us. Their disappearance was not extinction, but absorption. Humor sneaks even into this solemn thought. One researcher said Denisovans didn't so much die out as they moved in, leaving their toothbrushes in our genetic bathroom forever. It's a silly image, but it captures truth. They became part of us rather than ghosts outside. Still, their fading must have felt tragic to those who lived it. Imagine last Denisovan group in Siberian Valley, fires dwindling, children fewer each year. They watch as sapiens spread, as prey grows scarce. They cling to memories of ancestors, ornaments passed down, tools carefully chipped. Slowly their language falls silent, their traditions end. Yet in final unions with sapiens, their blood survives. Their bodies may fade, but their essence flows forward. Climate likely dealt final blows. As Ice Age ended, forests spread, plains shrank, herds shifted again. Homo sapiens adapted with new tools, farming on horizon. Denisovans, tied to older ways, dwindled further. By 40,000 years ago, their caves were empty, their bones already fossilizing in silence. And yet their story does not end with loss. Their genes are written in Tibetan's breath, and immune systems of islanders, and fragments inside nearly every human alive. They are not gone, they are within us. Their vanishing as people is paradoxically their survival as legacy. Picture their final night in Bashir Cave. Snow falls, fire flickers, A few families huddle close. They tell stories of ancestors, sing songs in language never heard again. Children fall asleep, breaths slow, dreams drift. Outside, winds howl across plateau. In morning, they will wake to harsher world, fewer numbers, yet their line will not end, for some of them have already joined with sapiens, leaving children who carry them into eternity. Modern science sometimes calls this ghost populations. Denisovans are ghosts, unseen except in DNA, haunting our blood. But ghosts are not only sorrowful, they are presence, reminder, connection. They remind us that our family was once larger, richer, more diverse. Their vanishing teaches us humility, that survival is not destiny but fragile, contingent. And humor again lightens thought. Imagine Denisovans rolling their eyes at being called ghosts. We're right here, they'd protest, in your lungs, in your blood, in your genes. And they'd be right. We are their afterlife. Their vanishing also shaped myth. Legends of giants, shadow people, ancient beings across Asia may echo memory of Denisovans. Oral stories stretched across millennia may have preserved faint shadows of cousins who disappeared yet lingered in imagination. Even forgotten, they were not wholly erased. As you drift tonight, imagine sitting in silent cave. Ash lies cold, tools scattered, ornaments buried in soil. The people are gone, yet you feel them in air, in stone, in your own breath. Denisovans vanish, but they remain, carried within us. Their disappearance is not end but transformation, proof that even in loss, there is continuity. For most of human history, Denisovans were forgotten. No one carved their faces into cave walls. No bard sang their names in epic verse. No records were left behind. And yet, it is possible their memory lingered, not in bones or ornaments, but in stories. Across Asia, from Siberian forests to Himalayan valleys to Pacific islands, there echo legends of giants, shadow people, mysterious ancestors who lived before us. Could these myths be faint whispers of Denisovans, carried across generations like smoke through time? Science cannot prove it, but imagination finds resonance in tales told by firelight. In Siberia, native tales speak of Chuchina, wild hairy giants who roam forests taller than any man, strange yet human-like. In Tibet, myths tell of beings on plateaus, powerful and adapted to thin air, spirits who came before. In Melanesia and Pacific Islands, oral traditions speak of ancient people who mingled with ancestors, then faded into shadow. These stories may not be literal memories, but they carry echoes of encounters with others not quite like us. Humor threads through myth too. One tale describes giants with teeth so large they could crush bones in single bite. Archaeologists chuckle, remembering Denisovan molars, broad and massive, unlike ours. Could stories of toothy giants be exaggerations of real encounters? Science smiles at possibility. Myth grins back. Legends often describe giants as both helpers and threats. Some guided humans, teaching how to hunt or climb. Others stole food or children, stirring fear. This duality mirrors how encounters with Denisovans may have been, sometimes kinship, sometimes rivalry. Myths preserved complexity, remembering them as both friend and foe. Imagine Neolithic families in Tibet telling stories of beings who lived high before them, who breathed thin air with ease. They may not have known word Denisovan, but they remembered presence of others. Over time, story grew into myth, giants who owned mountains before humans, and in way they were right. Denisovans had lived there long before. In Pacific Islands, where Denisovan DNA lingers strongest, myths of first people abound. They are described as powerful, ancient, sometimes larger than life. Oral traditions rarely align neatly with archaeology, yet the overlap teases. Perhaps memory of encounters survived not in fossils, but in words. The storytellers may not have known science, but they knew they were not first. Humor sneaks into oral tales too. Some legends mock giants as clumsy, tripping over rocks, falling into rivers. Imagine real encounters where Denisovans stumbled, Sapiens laughed, and story was retold with embellishment. Laughter became myth. Myth became heritage. Even mockery preserves memory. And myths often link giants to sacred places, mountains, caves, ancient monuments. Archaeologists note Denisovan presence in such landscapes: Bashir Cave in Tibet, Denisova Cave in Siberia, valleys in Southeast Asia, all places where myth clings. Perhaps stories rose where people sensed old presence, bones unearthed, tools discovered. Myths grew to explain what they felt, but could not name. Children listening by fire carried tales forward, repeating them with awe. Giants became cautionary figures, teaching morality, warning of dangers. In this way, Denisovans shaped cultures long after they vanished. Even forgotten by name, they lingered as moral lessons, as sacred echoes. Humor again tempers awe. Imagine a child asking, "If giants were so strong, why aren't they here now?" An elder sighs, invents tale of their defeat, or mutters that they grew too lazy to hunt. Even extinction became softened into story, turned into joke, preserved as lesson. Scientists today tread carefully, not claiming myths prove Denisovans, but noting parallels. Giant teeth, mountain dwellers, ancient first peoples. Details align eerily with what little we know. Oral traditions are not fossils, but they are memory, and memory sometimes outlives bones. Perhaps in fragments, humanity remembered cousins. Imagine sitting with villagers in Himalayan night, listening as elder tells of beings before humans. Stars burn, wind howls, fire crackles. The story feels old, older than language itself. You realize you are hearing echo, not just of imagination, but of encounters lost to history. Myths are not evidence, but they are resonance, whispers of truths blurred by time. And even if myths are not literal, they honor Denisovans. They ensure that others are remembered, not erased. Legends of giants remind us we were never alone, that our family tree had branches thick and strong, now broken but not forgotten. Denisovans live in myth as much as in blood. As you drift tonight, imagine giants walking through forests, climbing peaks, laughing in caves. They are not monsters but cousins, remembered imperfectly through story. Their footsteps echo in genes, their shadows flicker in myths. Giants, wild men, first peoples, all remind us that Denisovans linger still, not only in science but in imagination. Picture your body as library, every cell holding books written in letters of DNA. Within those volumes are chapters inherited from countless ancestors, sapiens from Africa, Neanderthals from Europe, and Denisovans from Asia. Your anthology of human history, each page an echo. When scientists sequence modern genomes, they find Denisovan passages embedded in billions of living people. The Denisovans are not forgotten, they are alive in us. The most famous Denisovan inheritance is the EPUS, one gene. In Tibetans, it grants the ability to thrive in thin air, preventing dangerous surges of red blood cells that afflict outsiders at altitude. Without Denisovan DNA, the Tibetan plateau might never have been settled so successfully. Imagine herders guiding yaks across high passes, lungs steady, hearts calm. That strength comes from cousins who lived there 60,000 years ago. Denisovans breathe still in every step across Himalayas. But altitude is only one gift. Other Denisovan genes shape immune systems, helping fight viruses and bacteria. In Melanesia and Papua New Guinea, These fragments provide defenses against tropical diseases. Without them, survival might have been harder. Denisovans gave more than lungs. They gave resilience, invisible shields woven into our blood. Humor softens the science. One researcher joked that Denisovans were like long-lost relatives who send inheritance checks without anyone remembering who they were. It's true, they left gifts we still spend, though their names were unknown until one finger bone revealed them. Their generosity is inscribed in our very survival. The echoes vary across the world. Europeans carry little Denisovan DNA, while Southeast Asians and Islanders carry much more. This suggests multiple encounters, separate minglings in different times and places. Some groups inherited altitude genes, others disease resistance, others fragments we still cannot fully understand. Denisovan bloodlines spread like rivers branching across continents, leaving streams of influence in diverse peoples. Imagine a child born today in Papua New Guinea. Her eyes are bright, her lungs strong. Inside her cells are fragments of DNA crafted not only by sapiens ancestors, but by Denisovans who lived far away in caves and plateaus. She is living continuation of their line, proof that they endure not in memory alone, but in every heartbeat. The echoes reach even into appearance. Certain Denisovan genes influence skin and hair traits, though science is still unraveling details. Perhaps some of your features, subtle as curve of cheekbone or density of hair, are whispers from cousins who lived 50,000 years ago. They may be gone as people, but their fingerprints touch faces in mirror. And these echoes remind us that humanity was never singular. We are not pure descendants of one lineage, but blend of many. Neanderthals gave us fragments. Denisovans, others, our identity is hybrid, mosaic, mixture. We are patchwork quilt sewn from threads of vanished cousins. To deny them is to deny ourselves. Humor again lightens thought. Imagine Denisovans hearing modern humans boast of being pure sapiens. They'd laugh, "Pure? You're half us?" And they'd be right. Purity is illusion. Mixture is reality. Our blood is chorus, not solo. These echoes also shift how we see extinction. Denisovans vanished as people, but they survive as legacy. Extinction is not always erasure. Sometimes it is transformation, absorption into larger whole. In our genomes, Denisovans live, shaping bodies, influencing fates. Their disappearance is paradox. In dying, they became immortal through us. Picture scientists staring at computer screen, DNA sequences glowing. Within endless letters they find Denisovan patterns, unique signatures from long ago. Their excitement rises. They are listening to voices 40,000 years old, not in bones but in molecules. The Denisovans speak still if we know how to hear. Children of hybrids carried echoes forward, but now all of us carry them too. To walk Earth today is to be vessel of many lineages. The Denisovans did not vanish into dust. They merged into tide of humanity. We are walking memorials, breathing testaments to their survival. Imagine lying beneath stars, listening to wind whisper through trees. Your blood hums with memories older than language, older than art. Inside you are fragments of cousins who once hunted mammoth, stitched furs, climbed peaks. They are part of you, as alive as heartbeat, as real as breath. Denisovans endure not in caves but in your veins. And that thought softens grief of their vanishing. They did not lose entirely. They remain, not as separate people, but as part of us. To remember them is to honor ourselves, to recognize that we are larger than we knew. Every cell is a reminder we are not alone, never were. Humor helps again. Imagine Denisovans looking out from inside our DNA, smirking. "You thought we were gone. We're with you every step, hitchhiking forever." And indeed they are. They walk in us, unseen but unforgotten. As night deepens, imagine yourself on Tibetan slope, air thin, stars fierce, lungs steady. The breath you take is not wholly yours, it is gift of Denisovans, echo of cousins who lived and laughed long before you. You are their continuation, their future. In your blood they are eternal. High on the Tibetan plateau, where winds howl across empty ridges, and air grows thin enough to leave most people dizzy, another secret waited. Long before archaeologists came with brushes and sieves, a monk stumbled upon it. Picture the cave itself. Nestled in limestone cliffs above plateau, its entrance yawns like mouth of sky. Inside, it is cool, silent, walls damp with dripping water, floor dusted with sediment. Imagine a Denisovan family huddled near fire here, 60,000 years ago, long before sapiens ever set foot in Asia. Flames flicker, smoke curls upward, stars burn fiercely outside. At such altitude, cold is brutal, air thin, yet they thrive. They are not visitors, they are residents of the heights. The jawbone, thick and wide, told story. Its teeth were massive, like other Denisovan finds, hinting at robust body built for endurance. But what amazed scientists was not size, but location. To live at such elevation required adaptation even modern humans struggle with, and indeed, when they studied Tibetan DNA, they found the link. The EPAS1 gene, inherited from Denisovans, still helps Tibetans thrive in thin air today. Imagine daily life for Denisovans on plateau. They hunted wild yaks and gazelles, stalked blue sheep across ridges, cracked bones for marrow by fire. They melted snow for water, gathered hardy roots, stitched fur clothing against cutting winds. At night they sang perhaps, their voices carried thin across silence, echoing against peaks. The plateau was harsh but alive, and Denisovans were its masters. Humor creeps into the scene. Picture one Denisovan teasing another. You breathe like fish out of water when companions stumbled at altitude. Even adapted, some days must have left them gasping. Jokes, as always, soften struggle, reminding them they were together. The significance of the Baishir jawbone is immense. It proves Denisovans were not confined to one Siberian cave, but spread widely, even to most forbidding landscapes. It shifts map of human prehistory, showing Asia was tapestry of peoples long before sapiens came. It teaches us that our lineage inherited more than land from cousins. We inherited survival itself. Archaeologists dig carefully in Bashir Cave, brushing sediment, sieving dust, searching for more. They find traces of occupation stretching thousands of years. The cave was not one-time refuge, but long-term home. Generations of Denisovans walked its chambers, left ashes, dropped bones, told stories now lost. Each layer of soil is page and book we are only beginning to read. Children must have grown here too, chasing each other outside cave, their laughter ringing in thin air. They grew strong lungs from birth, their bodies sculpted by plateau. They learned to track herds, to stitch hides, to light fires in wind. Childhood on plateau forged adults who were tougher than stone, shaped by mountains themselves. The gene they passed on, EPAS1, is more than adaptation. It is gift. It flowed into sapiens through interbreeding, then spread in Tibet. Without it, herding yaks at 14,000 feet, building monasteries in mountains, climbing Everest, all would have been far harder. Denisovans are gone, but their breath still fills Tibetan valleys, unseen but vital. Humor again eases solemnity. Imagine Denisovans watching modern climbers hauling oxygen tanks up Everest. They'd laugh. We did this with nothing but furs and fire. Their resilience would seem superhuman to us, though to them it was simply life. The Barshia find also reminds us how much remains hidden. Denisovans left so few bones, yet their DNA is everywhere. How many other caves hold fragments waiting to be discovered? How many valleys hide tools, ornaments, stories in stone, and their plateau presence connects them deeply to us? Every Tibetan breath is whisper of Denisovans, every summit conquered tribute to them. They may not have left art on cave walls, but they carved survival into genes, masterpiece more enduring than paint. Picture standing in Baishia Cave at dusk. Wind howls, stars blaze, valley stretches below. You imagine fire burning where now is silence. Figures huddled, children laughing, hunters sharpening blades. You feel presence of people long gone yet still inside you. The cave is empty, but it is not silent. It hums with echoes in blood and breath. Their story humbles us. We thought ourselves alone, yet Denisovans remind us we were never solitary. They lived where few dared. They thrived where air thins. They were giants of endurance, their legacy still shaping us. Their jawbone in Baishia Cave is not relic, but message. We were here, we endure in you. As you rest tonight, imagine lying on Tibetan slope, sky vast above, mountains endless. You breathe deeply, air thin, but sweet, lungs steady with gift of Denisovans. Their fire burns still in you, their strength hums in blood. They are not gone, they are within, guardians of breath, masters of altitude, ancestors of resilience. The Denisovans were not only masters of cold caves in Siberia or thin air on the Tibetan plateau. Their reach extended southward too, across jungles and rivers, into islands scattered across the seas. We know this, not because their bones lie there for fossils are still elusive, but because their DNA survives most vividly in people of Southeast Asia and Melanesia. If Siberia was their fortress and Tibet their temple, then the islands were their inheritance, carried forward in bloodlines that still walk the earth today. Picture a stretch of tropical forest in what is now Indonesia, 40 or 50,000 years ago. The air hangs heavy with heat, cicadas drone, and green presses in from every side. A Denisovan hunter pushes through ferns, sweat dripping down his brow, his breath steady despite humidity. The strongest traces of Denisovans live today in Papuans and Melanesians. Up to 5% of their DNA is Denisovan, a staggering inheritance compared to other populations. This means that long ago, their ancestors encountered Denisovans somewhere in Southeast Asia. Perhaps it was in lush valleys, perhaps on islands now drowned by rising seas. Those encounters left children, and those children became lineages that still endure. In this way, Denisovans did not vanish. They sailed invisibly into the future, hidden in genes. Science suggests these encounters were not one-time events. Instead, there were multiple waves of contact. One Denisovan group met ancestors of Papuans, leaving strong legacy. Another, genetically distinct, mingled with ancestors in East Asia. The pattern reveals Denisovans were not single people, but a network of populations spread across continent and islands, each shaping future in different ways. Imagine a crossing by raft or logboat. Denisovans push out into shallow seas, paddling toward islands shimmering on horizon. The waves slap wood, salt stings eyes, but determination drives them. They reach shore, step onto new land, and children play in sand while adults explore forests. These crossings may have been rare and dangerous, but they were real, for DNA does not lie. Denisovans reached far, leaving echoes on distant coasts. In Melanesia, the echoes of Denisovan DNA shape more than ancestry. They shape survival, genes inherited influence, immune systems, helping resist tropical diseases. Just as altitude genes in Tibet came from Denisovans, so too did resilience against jungle fevers in islanders. Their legacy is practical. embodied in every breath and heartbeat of descendants. But their influence is cultural too, if indirectly. Oral traditions across islands speak of first peoples, ancient ones who lived before, strong and strange. Perhaps these stories remember encounters with Denisovans, perhaps islanders, seeing robust strangers with heavy jaws and broad teeth, folded them into myth. Even without fossils, memory persisted. Archaeologists suspect Denisovans may have overlapped with other small-bodied humans too, like Homo floresiensis, the hobbits of Flores. Imagine that meeting, robust Denisovan towering over tiny hobbit, two cousins staring at each other in jungle, clearing. Did they compete, ignore, or mingle? We do not know, but the image lingers, a reminder of how diverse humanity once was. The island traces also tell story of adaptability. Denisovans endured Ice Age cold mountain heights and tropical forests. Few human groups have shown such range. They were chameleons of survival, adjusting to climate, terrain, and prey. Their DNA's survival in such diverse environments proves they were not fringe, but central to human story. Picture a village in Papua tens of thousands of years ago. Children splash in river, women pound sago, men sharpen spears. Among them walks a Denisovan descendant, his body carrying traits of both sapiens and cousins. He laughs, he sings, he hunts. He is hybrid, yet wholly human. Through him, Denisovans live. Humor again sneaks in. Imagine those early encounters, a sapiens woman introducing Denisovan husband to family. He's a bit bigger, but he's good with fire. The family frowns, then chuckles, then accepts. Love, it seems, was always stronger than division. Even today, the island traces shape lives. Papuans and Melanesians carry Denisovan DNA at levels far higher than most of world. Every child born there is testament to unions long ago. They are living fossils, not in bones but in genes, carrying lineage forward. And the island traces remind us of humanity's migrations. Denisovans did not simply sit in caves, they moved, explored, spread. They crossed valleys, climbed mountains, paddled seas. They were pioneers, not shadows. Their DNA scattered across Asia proves restlessness, curiosity, courage. They were as adventurous as we pride ourselves on being. Their traces also humble us. We imagine history as ours alone, but we are not sole authors. Denisovans wrote chapters too, written not in ink but in DNA. Their presence in islanders is reminder. Humanity is not single thread, but braided rope. Each strand strengthens whole. Each ancestor shapes future. Humor closes thought. Imagine Denisovans watching modern geneticists puzzle over their legacy. You finally found us, they might say, grinning. We've been hiding in your blood all along, and indeed they have. The island traces are their laughter echoing across oceans, their footprints stamped in genes. As you drift tonight, imagine sitting by ocean, waves rolling endlessly. The stars above are same, your ancestors watched. Denisovans among them. Their presence is in water, in wind, in breath. They are not lost. They sail still, in blood of islanders, in stories of giants, in whispers of sea. For all that Denisovans have given us, the lung power of Tibetans, the resilience of Melanesians, the haunting beauty of their bracelet. What remains most powerful is what we do not know. They are the most mysterious of our cousins, revealed not by skulls and skeletons, but by whispers in DNA. Picture a forensic artist asked to reconstruct a Denisovan. The trouble is, there is no skull, a fragment of jaw, a tooth, a sliver of skull bone, that is all. Artists try, guided by DNA hints and comparisons with Neanderthals, but every face they draw is guesswork. Did Denisovans have broad brows like Neanderthals or slimmer features like us? Were they tall and robust or shorter and compact? We may carry their blood, but we cannot yet picture their smiles. Even their skin, hair and eyes are debated. DNA suggests they may have had dark skin, dark hair and brown eyes. Yet no certainty exists. Imagine the irony. Your body carries fragments of Denisovan DNA, yet you would not recognize them if one walked past you in crowd. They are family we cannot describe. Their voices too are lost. Did they speak in low rumble, in higher pitch? Did they sing songs by fire, chant myths, lull children with soft tunes? Some scientists speculate Denisovans had language, given their complex tools and ornaments, but what words they used, what sounds they shaped, is gone. The silence of their caves is heavy, for no echo of their voices remains. Humor softens the ache. One researcher joked, maybe Denisovans were incredible singers, but we'll never know because none of them left a mixtape. It is silly, but it captures truth. Their music, their laughter, their chatter are all absent. We can imagine but never hear. Culture is another abyss. Neanderthals left art, cave scratches, shells with pigment. Sapiens left paintings, carvings, beads. Denisovans left perhaps the bracelet, perhaps ornaments, perhaps tools. But was their culture rich in myth and ritual? Did they bury their dead with flowers, like Neanderthals? Did they paint walls, or did they carry beauty only in ornaments worn on bodies? The record is too thin to answer. Imagine a Denisovan storyteller by fire, children gathered close, shadows dancing. He weaves tale of ancestors, of mountains alive with spirits, of rivers that sing. The children laugh, gasp, murmur. The tale is lost, ashes of story scattered, but you can almost hear it. We know they must have had stories, for humans cannot live without them, but what those stories were, we cannot recover. Even their numbers are mystery. How many Denisovans lived at peak? Were they millions spread across Asia, or thousands in scattered groups? Their DNA suggests diversity, populations across continents. But the fossils are few. They are paradox, widespread but invisible, common but faceless. We also do not know how they organized themselves. Did they live in large bands like sapiens, or smaller groups like Neanderthals? Did they trade across valleys, or remain isolated? Did they fight one another, or form alliances? Their social world is blank canvas, awaiting strokes of discovery. Humor again nudges. Imagine Denisovans watching scientists puzzle over them, whispering, "We left you nothing so you'd stay curious forever." It is almost as if they enjoy being ghosts, shadows tantalizing us with absence. The biggest question remains, why did they vanish? Climate shifts, competition, disease, all are possible, but none definitive. Perhaps they faded gradually, absorbed into sapiens and Neanderthals. Perhaps they dwindled through isolation. Perhaps one harsh winter too many broke their numbers. Their vanishing is as enigmatic as their lives. And then there is the question of where else they lived. DNA suggests they ranged across Asia, but fossils are absent in many regions. Did they build camps in jungles of Borneo, hunt in valleys of India, cross seas into Oceania? Their presence is known only in genes, their footprints erased by time. Every island, every cave may yet hold their bones. What tools they used beyond stone blades remains fragmentary. Did they weave baskets, carve wood, build shelters? Did they string musical instruments, paint their bodies, tattoo their skin? Archaeology gives no answers yet. The emptiness of evidence is both frustrating and thrilling. Each gap is invitation to search, to dig, to imagine. Imagine if tomorrow a full Denisovan skeleton were unearthed. intact and preserved. We would finally see their face, their body, their stature. Imagine if a cave were discovered with paintings unmistakably Denisovan, symbols never seen before. Such finds would shatter silence, give voice to mystery. That they have not yet been found makes waiting sharper, yet the absence itself teaches. It reminds us how fragile memory is, how easily history is erased. The Denisovans endured for hundreds of thousands of years, yet left almost nothing tangible. Their silence warns us that survival is not same as remembrance. Without DNA, they would be utterly forgotten. And still, perhaps mystery is gift. To not know keeps us humble, keeps us curious. Denisovans refuse to be pinned down, reminding us past is larger than we can grasp. Their shadows stretch across imagination, forcing us to accept we are not masters of history, but seekers fumbling in dark. As you breathe tonight, feel mystery settle like blanket. Know that inside you are answers not yet read. Denisovan fragments, humming in cells. You carry their face, their voice, their culture within. Even if you cannot name it, the mystery is not only in caves, it is in you. Denisovans endure as question marks, as ghosts who laugh gently at our ignorance, as cousins we know but do not know. The Denisovans leave us with fragments, the child's finger bone, a molar big enough to dwarf ours, a jaw pulled from Tibetan cave, a bracelet glimmering in stone dust. Their traces are scattered and thin, yet their legacy is vast, spread invisibly across continents, alive within billions of people. They may be the most mysterious of our cousins, but they are also among the most enduring, for they live on not only in fragments of bone, but in every heartbeat, every breath, every cell shaped by their genes. Their legacy is not absence, but presence hidden in us. Picture the human family tree. Once it was drawn as ladder, neat rungs rising from ape to modern human, but Denisovans tear that ladder apart. They force us to see web instead, tangled and braided, branches splitting and reconnecting, roots crossing, leaves mingling. Their existence proves humanity was never single line, but chorus, many voices singing together, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in tension. Denisovans are not footnote, they are verse in song of us. Their most immediate legacy is genetic. In Tibetans, their DNA lets lungs thrive at impossible heights. In Melanesians, it strengthens immune systems against tropical disease. In others, it whispers through metabolism, immunity, and traits still being uncovered. Each Denisovan gene is gift carried through centuries, survival written into code. They may be gone, but their resilience breathes in us. Yet legacy is more than DNA. It is reminder that family is larger than we thought. For centuries we imagined ourselves alone once Neanderthals vanished. Now Denisovans reveal we were never solitary. Our past was crowded, shared with cousins who laughed, hunted, stitched and dreamed. Their memory reminds us that loneliness is illusion. Humanity has always been many. Humor softens this truth. One geneticist said we should stop calling Denisovans extinct and start calling them the relatives who moved in permanently. It's true, they never left. They merged, absorbed, woven into us like threads into cloth. Extinction is not erasure. It is transformation into something larger. Their legacy also reshapes how we imagine ourselves. We are not pinnacle, not destiny fulfilled, but branch surviving among many. Others were as clever, as resilient as human in their way. Denisovans remind us that we are not chosen but lucky, inheritors of gifts from those who came before. They humble us, stripping away arrogance, leaving gratitude. Imagine their bracelet, polished green stone drilled with precision. It lies buried for tens of thousands of years, yet gleams still, as if Maker only set it down yesterday. That bracelet is legacy too, proof that Denisovans loved beauty, valued craft, cherished more than survival. It tells us they were human not only in body but in spirit, creators of meaning as well as tools. And imagine their hybrids, children of sapiens and Denisovans, of Neanderthals and Denisovans. These children were legacy made flesh, bridges carrying lineages forward. Through them, Denisovans live on. Every smile of a Melanesian child, every strong breath of Tibetan shepherd, every human today carrying fragments, all are walking memorials of Denisovans. Their legacy even seeps into myth. Legends of giants, of shadow people, of first peoples who came before may carry echoes of them. Storytellers remembered shapes in dark, beings who lived before, vanished but not forgotten. The Denisovans became folklore, lingering in imagination long after bones crumbled. To live in myth is to live forever. Humor surely clung to them as well. Imagine Denisovans watching modern humans sequencing their DNA, bewildered by glowing screens. They'd laugh. We're still here, and you needed machines to notice. Their grin would be wide, teeth massive, eyes twinkling. They might tease us. You think you're advanced, but you can't even survive high plateau without our genes. Legacy can be playful too. Their story is unfinished. Each new cave, each bone fragment, each genome may reveal more. They remind us that knowledge is never complete, that mystery is part of inheritance. Denisovans are not locked in past. They are discovery always unfolding. Their legacy is curiosity itself, the hunger to seek, to know, to connect. Their legacy is us, not separate, not extinct, but absorbed, mingled, reshaped into humanity we know today. They are in lungs, in immune cells, in bones, in blood. To deny them is to deny ourselves. To remember them is to remember truth. We are all hybrids, all mosaics, all family. And now, as night deepens, let their legacy soothe you. You are not solitary. You are chorus of ancestors, Denisovans among them, humming in every cell. Their story is yours, their breath your breath, their endurance your strength. They may be shadows, but they are shadows that live inside you. The fire in Deninova cave has burned low. The bracelet gleams faintly in dust. The tooth lies buried in soil. The jaw rests high on plateau. Their laughter has gone silent, but their breath lingers still in you as you lie now, eyes closing. Remember that you carry their gifts, the strength to endure, the lungs to climb, the immune fire to survive. They are not lost. They whisper in your blood, hem in your breath, sing softly in your cells. Let the weight of mystery drift away. You do not need to solve their story tonight. You need only to rest, knowing you are part of family larger than memory. Denisovans are gone as faces, but they are present as essence, their line folded into yours. Even in silence, you are never alone. So breathe slowly. Inhale the ancient gift of air. Exhale the centuries of memory. Let your shoulders fall, your jaw unclench, your thoughts quiet. Imagine yourself wrapped in furs beside their fire, safe within cave walls, snow falling outside, wind muted to whisper. You are warm, you are held, you are home. Sleep comes gently, like ash settling, like stars blinking into night. Let Denisovans fade into dreams, not as strangers but as kin watching over you. Close your eyes, rest in their strength, in their mystery, in their legacy, and sleep well. Good night. Sweet dreams.